Please note that in this show, you may hear graphic descriptions or language that may not be appropriate for everyone. Listener discretion advised. Welcome to Parentless Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Relaford. On the show, we're going to be speaking with others who have experienced the loss of one or both of their parents or their parental figures. As we heard in episode 12 with Louisa Velarde, being parentless is like an island, and I don't know how to swim. Thank you for being my life jacket.
Hi, I'm Dara Kurtz, creator of crazyperfectlife.com and author of the book, I Am My Mother's Daughter, Wisdom on Life, Loss, and Love. And I'm a mom to two daughters who are now 21 and 18. I've been married to my college sweetheart for a really long time. And I'm going to be 50 in July, which is, crazy and such a blessing all at the same time.
Very good. Well, Dara, thank you so much and welcome to Parentless Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Who are we here for? Who died for you?
So my mom passed away. Well, the same week I found out I was pregnant with my first child, my mom found out she had stage 4 melanoma. And melanoma is a form of skin cancer. And she had had it 5 years before. And it was a freckle. They took it off. They said she was going to be fine. And we believed it. We thought, she's going to be fine. And then 5 years later, she did not feel good. And she went to the doctor and found out it was basically everywhere in her body. And so the bigger I got, because I was pregnant, the sicker my mom got. And just a few weeks after I had my first child, my mom passed away. And so it was devastating for me. She was my person. And then to be in that situation where I was a new mom and I had this beautiful daughter, and I was so happy about that. And then to not have my mom and to feel that loss, it was such a parallel experience of joy and happiness and despair and pain, really all at the same time. And I didn't know how to handle it. I really didn't. And there weren't podcasts like this. There weren't people out there talking about grief and pain and loss. And I was really one of the first people in my friend group to have lost her mom. And so it was just a very lonely time for me. And this was 20 years ago. And so my daughter's 21. So it was 21 years ago. It was a really challenging time.
And I want to hear more about that. I think that just something changes when you become a parent yourself and then you don't have, either your parents or your mom. So I do want to talk about that more. How old was your mom when she passed away?
So she had just turned 52. Her birthday was in September and she passed away in November. So she had just turned 52. And so I definitely know that I'm turning 50 soon. And, I've been talking about this with my counselor for a while because I know that, there's going to be some triggers there, of course. But hopefully I've been doing a lot of work on myself over the past few years as well. And it'll just not be as challenging as maybe it would have if I hadn't done the work.
Yeah, that's it. That's another layer too. There's so many layers to all of this. I recently signed up for a workshop with Hope Edelman. And so one of the workshops that she's going to be doing is about being the same age as your mom when she passes or when she passed. So that's coming up. So that'll be something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay. So how old were you?
I was, I had just turned 28. So I just turned 28 when she passed away. I really struggled with how to bring my mom into my daughter's lives just because they never got to know her. And so one of the things that we did is every year on my mom's birthday and on the anniversary of her death, she always loved eating hot fudge sundaes. And so when my kids were really little, that's when we started it because I wanted them to kind of feel a way to connect to my mom. And what child doesn't want to eat an ice cream sundae? And so we started eating ice cream sundaes on her birthday and on the anniversary of her death. And it was just kind of a really beautiful way to bring her into our lives and honor her. But I think anything that you can do to feel connected to the person that you've loved and lost, especially on their birthday, is so beautiful.
Good. I did. I saw one of your pictures. It must have been from maybe the November.
Oh, yeah.
Portion, but that was really nice. Yeah. And it's remembering your person is so important. So
it is
more about how you do that as well. And so your mom was sick while you were pregnant. That is amazing in itself and horrible. And just a complete, all of these things that you've had going on in your life are just completely unique experiences, I believe. Were you there with your mom when she passed away?
Yeah.
Tell me kind of about those last days there.
I live in North Carolina, and my mom and my whole family lives in Richmond, Virginia. And so it's like a 4-hour drive. And so we went to Richmond, my husband and I would say almost every weekend of my mom's illness, of my pregnancy. I actually ended up towards the end of my pregnancy. It was pretty obvious that my mom wasn't doing very well, although we didn't really talk about we didn't talk about her dying. And so I actually ended up going on maternity leave early for work because I was a financial advisor at the time. And that was really good for me, like just to have that distraction and really focus on my career and my job that I actually really did love at the time. And so I ended up going on maternity leave early, and I was actually in Richmond, and I was there staying with my mom and my dad, and I went into labor early, and I ended up having Zoe, my daughter. Her name is Zoe, which means life, which is why we named her Zoe, because, we needed a reminder of life and during this time. And so I ended up having I had her in Richmond. I went into labor. I didn't have a doctor, and I had an appointment like later that week to find a doctor in Richmond. And so I remember I said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I just felt like I was going to be having a baby. And after a few hours, I was like, you really need to take me to the hospital. We had to call friends to come stay with my mom. He took me to the hospital. He called my husband when we were told that I was definitely going to be delivering the baby. And so my husband left North Carolina, flew down the highway. I was with my dad and my brother came to the hospital. And the second John walked in the door, who's my husband, I literally had the baby. It was the easiest delivery ever. But my dad and my brother were in the room with me and my husband when I had Zoe. It was just such a crazy experience. My brother was in med school at the time, and my dad was a rescue squad volunteer. So it's not that they were completely foreign to that, but it was just so weird. But I also think it was kind of something that we all needed. They needed to see the cycle of life, or, just a joyful, happy experience. But it was pretty bizarre. And Zoe was a month early, and a few weeks later, my mom passed away. So thank God she was early.
So your mom was able to meet her?
She was. She met her and she held her, but of course that was very, very bittersweet. Mm-hmm. And I actually have some pictures of that I found recently, and I hadn't looked at them for over 20 years. And they were hard reminders to look at and remember how sick my mom was and how difficult just all of that was for everyone.
Okay. So were you right there with your mom when she passed away, or did you have to get a call telling you the news?
Yeah, no. So then she went to the hospital, and we went to the hospital literally every day, all day long, all night long. And my whole family was with her when she passed away. Yes. And there was this beautiful sunset. And as the sun was setting, her breath became slower and slower. And it was like sun setting, breathing slower, sun setting. It was really quite an amazing, beautiful, devastating, all-in-one experience. And I was with my grandmothers too. I was with both of my grandmothers when they passed away, and they lived well into their 80s. And so they were really kind of the women that I leaned on after I lost my mom. And I was with both of them when they passed away also.
So your mom passed away before your grandmother's?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is a lot. So you as a new mom, what got you through that time?
Truthfully, pretending like I was fine, putting a smile on my face, and going back to work after my maternity leave, diving into work 100%. And, I felt like I wanted to be a happy mom for Zoe. And so I put a smile on my face and swept all the pain sort of under the rug and ended up having my best year at work ever, which, looking back obviously says a lot. Like someone who just had a baby and who lost her mom should not have her best year at work. And it kind of says it all. Like I was just 100% trying to distract myself because I just I didn't know what to do. It was just an incredibly hard time. But once you start distracting yourself, you get used to distracting yourself. You get used to pushing the pain away. And then years go by. And I got really good at that.
Yeah, I think that that's something that I may have gotten really good at too. So tell me, I was kind of checking out your website and some of your other things that you have out there. Tell me about the bag of letters.
Yeah. So when I was 9 years old, I went to sleepaway camp, and I went to sleepaway camp every summer after that. And I would get letters from home, most of them written by my mom and my two grandmothers. And that first summer, I just, ended up taking all the letters, putting them in a Ziploc bag. They probably said, pack up all your stuff. And I just put them in a Ziploc bag, got home from camp, put that bag in my closet. Well, every single summer, and then every year when I went to college, I would get letters from my mom and my grandmothers. I would put the letters when I came home in that same bag in my closet. And so when my dad ended up getting remarried and moved home, somehow that bag ended up in my house, and it ended up in the back of a drawer in my den. Well, I actually forgot about it completely. And thanks to a random sequence of events, I remembered that I had this Ziploc bag of letters. And so one night, finally, I had the courage to sit down and read the letters. And I was blown away I felt like I was having a conversation with my mom. I could feel her personality. I could hear her voice. And my mom was a counselor. And so there was a lot of wisdom and advice in those letters that I really needed to hear. And it was almost kind of like Dara, it's time to get back to the business of living and move forward. And I was just blown away by the experience. And so I felt like there was a book there. A little bit of time went by, and then I sat in this room that we're talking in, wrote, I Am My Mother's Daughter, Wisdom on Life, Loss, and Love, sobbed while I was writing it so many times. It was like a gift for me because I released a lot of the grief that I was carrying around, but also people say that they can really feel that and they can kind of connect with it. But it's really a book written from my heart to people out there who have loved and lost and maybe don't know how to navigate that, or they don't know what to do. And I think it could really help a lot of people. And it's also about, how to connect with the people that we have in our lives now and how to grow our relationships and not wait.
We don't want to waste that time that we have.
Exactly. So
I believe your book came out in September.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Do you have a specific date?
I think it came out September 1st. Honestly, with the pandemic,
I know
it was kind of crazy. Yeah, because so many people pre-ordered it and then they didn't get the book on the September 1st, but it was officially September 1st.
Okay, I was just wondering since September was in there, it would be around the same date. So, and you mentioned, this is 20 years after your mom passed away that you found this bag of letters again, and your daughter is 21. So it wasn't that long ago that you did find these letters, and that do you feel like you've been, I guess, working your whole life, or you mentioned you got busy. So is it just within the last year or 2 years that you've been doing this work, or?
So, 7 years ago, I went through breast cancer. 7 years ago, one day I was fine and my kids were 11 and 14. And then I had a lump and I went to the doctor, and the end of that, it ended up being breast cancer. I found it relatively early. I had a lot of really good things going for me, but that was a devastating experience because it brought back so much of my mom's sickness, but I didn't realize it when I was going through it. And so it just made that experience that much harder. And so I was a financial advisor, but after I went through, and I worked for over 20 years as a financial advisor. And then after I went through breast cancer, I thought, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to think about money anymore. I want to share my story and try to help other people. And that's when I started Crazy Perfect Life. That's when I started writing. I wrote my first book, Crush Cancer, and it has a workbook, and I started speaking a lot and, kind of helping people in that space. And then time just kind of went on, and I found this Ziploc bag of letters. And I was working on another book at the time. And after that experience, I just put that book aside, and I just felt like I wanted to write about this, and it just poured out of me. And I'm so grateful for that experience and to have this book that is really just, like I said, written from my heart to people everywhere.
Well, someone recently told me if you show up with your heart, then that's pretty much all you need to do. So
I 100% agree. If you show up with your heart, then everything else is good. Yeah.
So where can we find your book?
So people can go to my website, crazyperfectlife.com. There's links that'll take you. Of course, you can get it on Amazon, which is obviously very easy. My local bookstore has signed book copies, so people can get that as well on my website. And there's 5 free gifts that people can get if they buy my book. Then they can go to my website and they can download 5 pretty cool printables that I made during the pandemic that are like sharing journals. There's a mother-child journal. There's a template that talks about the different kinds of letters and how to write them. There's a stationery template, just lots of different fun things that people can download for free.
And this is something that I've been trying to bring in. I know I don't want to forget. Sometimes I have, but what is your mother's name?
My mom's name is Terry.
Terry.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Her name's Terry Arlene, and my second daughter, her name is Avi Taylor. So I took the T and the A and, kind of swapped it around a little bit, but her name's Avi Taylor after my mom.
Oh, very good. I like that. We took, I think my son has my maiden name for his middle name. And
I love that.
My other son has kind of a play on my mom's name as well. So.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. And I don't know, just your life. I'm so inspired by a lot of the people that I talk to and a lot of the growth work that everyone has done. And the fact that people in this grief community really are just out to help other people.
Yeah.
And share your experiences.
I would say to anyone who is currently experiencing a loss and or maybe has experienced a loss, and it's still, it's always there. It never goes away. But I do believe that being intentional about thinking about things and doing the grief work and going through it, you have to go through it. Nobody can do it for you. And I tried to distract myself for such a long time. I didn't want to think about all the stuff that really hurt. And I was so angry. I was raising, of course, my first child. I would go to birthday parties and I would see my friends' moms at all these parties. And I just felt so cheated. And I was so angry about it for a really long time. And, at the end of the day, you can't run from grief. You have to go through it. You do. And it's not fun, and it's hard work, and it's exhausting and devastating, but you can get to the other side. And what I know for sure is that my mom would never want me to waste one day of my life being stuck in grief so much that I wasn't able to experience joy, because, I know that would be so important. And really reading the letters that she wrote me, that was such a gift, because it was so obvious how much she valued life and every single day of her life, that was sort of such an important lesson that I needed to see, to feel, to hear, to read.
And so now with your experience of having read those letters and now you having kids as well, what do you tell people something that they should do now that we have time with our loved ones?
Yeah. Well, I think that, so first of all, I definitely believe in the power of the handwritten word. And, I personally feel like it's such a gift to write letters to the people that you love and care about. So after going through that bag of letters, I feel like there's 3 kinds of letters. There's the just because letter, there's the special occasion letter, and then there's the legacy letter. And I share actually the legacy letter that my mom wrote to me. And actually I have one that I wrote to my daughters, and it's in the book as well. But, I think just taking the time to write people and tell them how you feel about them, even in a just because letter, which is really what it sounds like. Just pick a piece of paper up and write someone and tell them how much you love them and care about them. And especially right now with COVID and we're all missing and feeling so disconnected, it's such a beautiful gift to give to people that you love and care about. So I really think it's so important to not hold back on how you feel, and to make sure that it's all been said, because we don't know what's going to happen. Life is so fragile. And to me, I just want to live every single day of my life honoring the people that I love and care about, and making sure that I connect with them every day, even if that's just a 10-minute phone call.
So do you make a lot of calls?
Right now, I'm really taking COVID seriously. So I don't do a whole lot. I mean, my book tour is virtual, and I spend a lot of time on my computer actually talking to people like you right now. But I do try to connect with both of my daughters every day, even if it's just, a 15-minute conversation. I mean, we spend a lot of time together, but it's not always like meaningful connection. Try to do that with my husband as well. And then I absolutely try to check in with my dad or my brother or people that I really care about. Yeah. So maybe I try to have like a couple phone calls every day where I'm really feeling connected to people that I love and miss.
I think that's so important for me. I don't know if it's the age that I grew up in or what, but it's texting, so it's, I'm more comfortable texting rather than picking up the phone. And I think, my mom kind of held our family together with her telling, oh, so-and-so's doing this.
Sure.
This. So yeah, I think a phone call, that's pretty important. So,
I love texting too. And right now my extended family, like we have this group text chat going on, and it's been it's brought us all closer because we're all in the same group thing. But what I'll say about texting is that we don't print out our text. We don't save our text really. And unless you screenshot it and then you unless you're really intentional about like saving it, you're not going to have the words that someone maybe said that are really meaningful. And so that's why, I think a handwritten letter is such a gift, because it's easier to save a letter than it is to save a text or an email. I've received very meaningful emails before, but most of them I have no idea where they are. I had intentions of saving them or sticking them in a file somewhere, and maybe I did, but I couldn't tell you where they are. But all the letters that I have that my kids have written me and that I've gotten from my family over the years, I can tell you exactly where all that is. And that's important to me.
And I think it's something too, you mentioned the handwritten part, and that's just something that makes you feel a little closer when you can see those movements of the lines and everything that person took that time to sit down and let you know that they're thinking about you. So
I totally agree with you. It's so special to see the handwriting of the people that you have loved and lost. And I can pick out an envelope, and I know exactly who the letter's from, whether it's my grandmother's or my mom, just because they each had everyone has their own handwriting. And so it's nice to know that they held that letter, and now I'm holding that letter, even though they're not here for me to hold their hand.
Today's podcast spotlight falls on the Thrive podcast with Garth and Dara. As always, let's start with the name. To thrive means to grow or develop well or vigorously, or prosper and flourish. The first episode is literally titled, You Deserve to Thrive. Garth Callahan and Dara Kurtz are both cancer fighters and thrivers. And Garth is also known as @NapkinNotesDad on Instagram. You've got to check him out. This is such a sweet idea. Both Dara and Garth have great wisdom, insight, and knowledge for their listeners. Find the Thrive podcast on any major podcast platform. If you have a favorite grief-related podcast that you would like to be in the spotlight, let me know.
So also something that I saw is that you recommend like daily affirmations. So one of the things I like to talk to people about are, what are your coping skills? How do you get through? So just kind of tell me your coping skills and also with those daily affirmations.
So I didn't have any of these skills when my mom first passed away. And even then, it wasn't until after I went through breast cancer that I developed like these coping skills, these daily practices, if you will. And I think it's really important, even though self-care is sort of a buzzword, it's actually super important to live self-care every single day. So here's some things that I do every day. I eat super clean. I don't know if you saw me when we were coming on. I was drinking my green juice, but I like to serve it in a champagne glass. I think it's a little extra special. But I try to drink a green juice. I meditate every day. I do Kundalini yoga almost every single day. I'm obsessed with it. It was a complete game changer for me. I try to be in nature every day, whether or not that's a walk or a hike or something like that. I write my journal every day. I try to really just connect with my thoughts and feelings. And really, I'm careful with who I surround myself with. And that's important as well, because I want to be with people who make me feel good about myself. I don't want to be talking to people who bring me down or, none of us, we don't need extra stress in our lives right now. So I take an Epsom salts bath almost every night. And, those are just some things that I do that really help me stay grounded. That doesn't mean that I don't get off ground, that I don't get triggered or that I don't feel anxious or sad, because I absolutely do, especially right now with COVID, and I'm living with my 18-year-old and my 21-year-old. And, it can be challenging, but to me, those daily practices ground me and I can handle things so much better. I can really tell a difference when I don't do some of that. I'm
sure. That's something I'm really going to try to look into is more self-care and just being intentional with things. Yeah,
absolutely. As for the affirmations, I just, I think it's important to have like a mantra. And I started this right after I went through breast cancer. I went through everything and the doctors were like, okay, Dara, it's time to go back to living your life. And that's when I did not know what that meant anymore, because I had changed so much. And so I started doing a lot of work on myself and really developing these practices. And so I do sort of have like a mantra or positive affirmations, and they can change depending upon where I am in my life or what's going on. But I mean, basically right now, like I'll say something like to myself, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm blessed. I trust the universe is on my side and all that I want is on its way to me. And I kind of say that to myself, like, I've gotten so used to saying it to myself that I just go to that, like, first thing in the morning before I get out of bed. And then I go into kind of like what I'm grateful for in my life, like 3 things that I'm grateful for before I even get out of bed. And, then I kind of sign when I'm writing in my journal, I end all my journal entries with whichever affirmations or mantras I'm working with. And right now it's the one that I just shared. And so, that just helps me feel more grounded. If something kind of crazy or stressful happens, I've noticed that like I just go to that and I just say that to myself, and it helps. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, I think what you do in the morning like is really going to set the tone for your day. So that makes sense. I really like that mantra. Okay.
I wish that I shouldn't say I wish, because if I really wanted to do this, I could do it. But right now I feel like my schedule and my family schedule is just so crazy because of the COVID. But I do think like coming up with a time that you get up every day and like an order of what your daily practices maybe are going to be, even if it's just 20, 30 minutes, really helps set the stage for your day. And I used to be more structured with that. But like I said, I feel like right now it's just, it's crazy.
Definitely. And now, you're doing your book tour virtually, which is something I would imagine that you've had to navigate.
Yeah. But you know what? It's actually been really interesting because we can Zoom anywhere. So like, I'm actually, in some ways, I feel like I might be a little bit busier than if I was going to all these places, because not all of these communities would have been able to fly me there, or, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And so now I'm able to really kind of zoom in to anywhere. And it's really, that's been such a blessing. The bad thing, well, I miss connecting with people face to face, and I can't sign any books. So, I think it's probably impacting book sales a little bit, but it's still a really great way to connect with people. There's a lot of self-care in this book because they're just tools that have helped me navigate. So a lot of things we just talked about are in this book. Like, it's how to meditate, and it talks a lot about just journaling and a gratitude practice and all of those things. But part of it, or one thing that I put in there, is a happiness contract that, everyone deserves to be happy. It's actually our human right, and we forget that. And you actually have the ability to figure out what that means for you. And then you owe it to yourself to find a way to create it. And so the happiness contract is a contract that you get, that you can kind of have just with yourself, to remind yourself that it's okay if you put yourself first, or put your happiness and make it a part of something that you really are wanting to achieve, because it's your human right.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah. If we start looking at life like that, I really like that. That's your human right. Very good.
Yeah.
And so now I'm gonna bring you back into another question that might be a little difficult. And also, we know that it does matter, and it just makes a big difference. And so, how do you feel like your mom's death has impacted your life?
Yeah, my mom's death has impacted my life way more than she would have wanted her death to impact my life. 100%. I was stuck in grief for a really long time, and I didn't see it until I found the bag of letters, and until I wrote this book. And that's when I realized that, wow, I've really been stuck in grief. And that's why I said, you can't run from grief. You have to do the work to get to the other side. And I think that it's always been there. Her death has always been there. I think about her every day. I miss her, but now I feel like I'm able to remember her in a more joyful way, if that makes any sense. I'm able to remember the happy times and let go of the guilt, or let go of the sadness, or let go of the anger. And it took me a long time to get there. Really, it took me 20 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. With you having your daughters and then with the loss of your mom and just you doing the work on yourself, I guess as your daughters were growing up, did you feel that impact of not having your mom there?
Yeah, I felt it every single day. When you have a baby, you don't really know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I missed my mom from day one in terms of all the things that I wanted to share with her and that she was missing. And I felt like she was cheated, that she had been given, that she had gotten a bad deal, that we had gotten a bad deal. And so it was really hard to be happy about all the cool things that my daughter was doing, the first steps and the baby food and just all of the things, and never have my mom to be a part of any of that. So yeah, it was a daily reminder really of the loss. I couldn't pick up the phone and say, hey mom, when did I do this? Or was I like this? And my dad, as close as we are, there's a lot of things he just doesn't know. He doesn't remember. And you kind of have to make peace with that too. But it definitely, my daughters understand the loss. They have felt that loss. They've also seen me find my peace with the loss. And that's one thing that I've had some really beautiful conversations with both of them since writing this book. And that is that, look, you saw how I handled my mom's death, and I want to be here for a really long time. But when I pass away, I don't want you to get stuck in grief like I did. I don't want you to feel like you have to model what you saw, the way you saw me handle the situation, because I don't want you to get stuck in grief like I did. And so we've had some really good conversations that I had never thought about
And now you're taking me back to you being stuck in grief. And you just told me that you kind of went through life and you did your job and you raised your kids. So is that what you mean by just not doing anything with your, not doing your grief work?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely dabbled in a little bit of grief work here and there, but I didn't really do a lot of the grief work. That's what I mean. I didn't push myself to do the grief work. I didn't want to do the grief work. It didn't feel good to do the grief work. And I think, you just kind of get used to not dealing with it, pushing it aside. And of course the pain and the sadness was always there, but it was under the surface.
Yeah. I guess I kind of feel too, like we kind of come to it when we're ready for it. So there was probably a reason for you to push through all of those years. And that's just I don't know the word to call it, like your immediate reaction. I have to get through this. I have to be a mom. I have to work. I have to do all these things. So I don't know. I wonder if your daughters even feel like they saw you stuck in grief.
No, we've talked about that. And I've even said, like, did you understand, or did you feel me being sad? Was I a happy mom? And they said they had no idea that I was feeling like that I was that sad, or, that it was there. And that made me happy that they didn't really pick up on that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a win for you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you were able to parent like that. I guess I see, and again, this is not about me, but like, I see that in myself that's not where I am right now. So I'm glad you were able to push through that and do that.
But, at the same time, it didn't serve me well. It would have been better but I don't judge myself. And I know that I did the best I could at that time. And I've, as anyone listening, we just all do the best we can with the hand we've been dealt. But looking back, I wish I had been a little bit more intentional about dealing with grief and letting it simmer up instead of trying to push it down.
Yeah. I want to hear about your mom. Do you have like a favorite memory of her, or a saying that she had a lot? Anything that you just remember right away about her?
Yeah. She always said, like, it's no problem. It's no problem. That was kind of like her saying. And she was just such a positive person. And so she always would say, I remember going camping, and it was pouring. We always went camping with my family. I don't know why we did, but that's what my parents loved, hiking and being in nature. And so we went camping a lot when I was a child, and it always rained because we didn't have the apps that could tell us when the rain was coming. Right. And I just remember like being in a tent one night, and it was pouring down rain. And I remember my mom was just like, it's no problem, that we're getting soaked, and all the food water's running down the steak that my dad had just grilled, And that's why, that kind of spirit, when you don't have that and you're so used to having it, you really miss that, having that spirit with you all the time.
Did you ever notice yourself kind of telling your kids it's no problem?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a lot like my mom, and I'm so grateful, for that. Yeah. She had a crazy side to her, and I think I have a crazy side to me, and I'm okay with that.
Did that play into your crazy perfect life name at all?
Yeah, it did. After I went through breast cancer, I was just kind of like done with pretending or pushing down who I really was in a lot of ways. And so I had a list of names, and my family voted on it, and we all kind of liked that one the best. And so that's kind of how that name came to be.
Okay. And how long have you had your website around?
I think it's been around for about, I don't know, 6.5 years, something like that. Time goes by really fast. And when I started it again, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to write. I wanted to find my voice. I wanted to eventually write books. And then it just kind of, you just kind of navigate and figure it out as you go. That's what I did anyway.
So I don't know, like with your mom passing away from cancer and then you having that experience.
Devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah, devastating, because I knew what it felt like to lose your mom. and my kids were 11 and 14. And it was literally like my number one worst nightmare. Like kind of, I was being confronted with it, if you will. And I just remember being on the table, and the amazing doctor was doing the biopsy initially. And I was just sobbing on the table. And I was saying, like, this can't be cancer, because I can't go through this, and I can't do this to my kids. And I was just sobbing. And he knew that it was breast cancer, because, you know, doctors know, they know what it looks like. And I just remember he said, Dara, you need to prepare yourself. It probably is. I really think that it is. And, you know, you're going to be able to get through it. It's different. Your story is not your mother's story. And that was said to me a few times, probably not enough, actually. And I write a lot about this. And I think it's something that I actually really want to start speaking about, because it's really hard when you watch someone in your family go through something, and then you go through something that brings it all up. But we have to remember that our story is not our mother's story or our father's story or whatever. We have to remember that. And it can be really hard to remember that.
Yeah, I imagine so. Everybody deals with everything differently. And yeah, again, with my mother, she was sick for quite a long time, and she was very strong through it. And, you know, if I have a headache, I'm like, oh, I have a headache. Oh, poor me. You know, so I do think about that. Yeah. So you had to be strong for your kids.
Yeah.
And for your family and for yourself.
Yes. I learned a lot during that experience. Absolutely.
Yeah, I bet so. I've listened to a few of your speaking events that are online, or your podcast as well. So tell me about your podcast that you have.
So my podcast is called Thrive, the podcast with Garth and Dara. And it is a podcast that I do with Garth Callahan, who's the author of the Napkin Notes. And he is a cancer thriver. He's had cancer really, for the past 9 years. And it's a chronic situation that he manages unbelievably well. And he and I just became really good friends when I was going through breast cancer. He's from Richmond, and somehow I found out about him. I guess we have a similar friend. And so his stuff showed up in my Facebook feed. And anyway, so we just became friends, and we were having these great conversations. And then we thought, you know what, we need to have a podcast. And so that's sort of how it started. We talk a lot about how to thrive no matter what, regardless of the challenges that life brings to you. And we have a lot of guests that really come on that talk about that. So it's been a really fun experience to do.
Yeah, I really like how you use the term cancer thriver. I know we've all heard the survivor part, but to survive and then thrive, that was super big to me. So I really liked to hear that phrase.
I'm glad. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
If you have a story you'd like to share, please give me a call at 623-396-6069. You don't even have to talk to me if you don't want to. You can leave a voicemail. You can send me a letter at parentlesspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for taking the time to stop in. If you'd like to support the show and have access to exclusive content, please visit www.patreon.com/parentlesspodcast.
Is there, let's see, for your mom, we talked about her phrase that she would use. Now, is there anything any smell, sight, taste, sound, song, anything like that helps you remember her? Or, because I know for me, I might be somewhere and I'll just smell something and I'll be like, oh, well, we cooked these cookies, a long time ago. So do you have anything like that?
That's nice. I would say I have her perfume, all of her perfumes, and I still have them, but they're like 21 years old. So they don't smell as good as they used to, but I have her perfumes, and every once in a while I just kind of take a little hit, smell the perfume, if you will. I have my grandmother's too, one of my grandmothers. And that's just, I like that.
Yeah. It's amazing how you know, smells or sounds or song that, you know, they just bring back a memory.
Barbra Streisand. My mom was obsessed with Barbara. And so anytime I hear a Barbra Streisand song, if it like randomly comes on my Alexa, I have to say that really slowly. So she won't start talking. But if it comes on, you know, I'm just kind of like, I notice immediately and I feel that connection.
Good. That's always nice when little,
Yeah.
do you have you had any signs, I guess?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about those.
Yeah, I get tons of signs. Butterflies for sure have always been like my sign with my mom, just always. Even like at her funeral, there were black butterflies that came and flew around during the funeral and just stayed like right there. And so when I see a butterfly, you know, I mean, I'm always like, hi, Mom. I mean, I am. And my kids were all like that with butterflies. In fact, we're talking about getting like a butterfly tattoo. Like, just, I don't know. We'll see. But I had a lot of signs from my mom. Even when I was writing this book, actually, I had some signs that she was supportive of me writing this book, because it's pretty exposed. I expose a lot in the book. And one night I was in bed, I was about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden I heard this voice, and it was my voice, but you know how you can hear a voice. Anyway, I heard a voice, and it just said, Dara, go into the kitchen and look in the black cabinet. And I have this black cabinet in my kitchen. We keep like files in it. I haven't opened the black cabinet. Like, I never opened the black cabinet ever. It probably needs to be cleaned out, and like, we need to get rid of the black cabinet. In fact, we don't need the black cabinet. But anyway, I heard this voice, and it was like, Dara, go into the kitchen and open the black cabinet and look in the files. And I was just kind of like, okay, that's really bizarre. But I got out of bed and I went in the kitchen and I opened it up, and there was a folder that said Mom on it. And I opened it up, and it was literally like letters that it was exactly what I needed in the place that I was in terms of writing, where I was in writing the chapter that I was working on. It was amazing that I found that. It was bizarre. And I just kind of like, you know, of course I went back to bed. I was like, John, wake up. And I told him what happened, but I just kind of took it as a sign that she was very supportive of me doing this. And I had some other kind of things like that happen, which I love. I love all that.
Yeah, that's important, because you mentioned like if you're exposing things, you need to kind of know that.
Yeah.
She would be okay with that. Yeah,
for sure.
If you were able to say anything to your mom today, what would you tell her?
You know, I talk to my mom every single day. I don't think that there's anything that I haven't said to her. I mean, she's very much a part of my daily life. And I do talk to her, but not in like I'm sad, just kind of like, just like I said, like I'll see a butterfly and I'll just be like, hey, Mom, you know, that kind of stuff. So I feel like she's traveling. I feel like she's with me, and I feel like she's kind of like there traveling through with me and kind of smiling down on me. I feel that.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that I like to talk about with people too. And so when you talk to her, do you feel like she can hear you?
Yeah, I choose to believe that she can. I choose to believe that she knows how important she still is to me and to my daughters, and that she's, you know, with us.
Okay. Very good. Are you religious at all?
You know, I'm Jewish. I was brought up that way. We raise our kids that way. I'm not a very religious person, though. I'm a very spiritual person. And I feel like such a connection to the universe, to a higher power, to God in that way.
Mm-hmm. Does that have anything to do with how you try to get out into nature? Is that
probably
one of the ways that you connect? Yeah. I've been seeing, and it's a lot of people who do the meditation and who are doing that. And then I love how they post pictures and they're in nature and they're just raising their arms, like they're just outstretching themselves. And so that's the person I want to be. Well,
you know, I mean, if that's speaking to you, then follow your heart there. I mean, if it's speaking to you, it's doing that for a reason. So, and my husband always says there's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing. So, right now it's cold here. So we went for a walk today. We just bundle up, but it's nice to feel connected to Mother Nature.
Well, do you have, I don't know, I feel like you have a lot of expertise that you should share with us. So is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to bring up and to talk about?
I would just say that, everyone, you wake up every day and what you're going to do with your day is a choice. We all get to choose what we're going to do with our day and how we're going to feel and what we're going to focus on. And our mind really plays such an important role in all of those things. And so I try to do everything I can to stay in a place where I'm feeling grounded, and it really impacts my day. It impacts the way I interact with people. It impacts the way I feel. And I just encourage people to recognize that, every day you have a choice. And also to lean in on gratitude, because instead of counting our losses or our problems, focusing on what we have or what we had is really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Every day you have a choice. I was just thinking that, once you were diagnosed with breast cancer, you had a choice of what to do.
I don't ever want anyone to think that I sailed through that, because I didn't. It was a really hard time for me, and I didn't have a lot of these skills that I have now. So I definitely made that a lot harder than it needed to have been. But, we do the best we can with the hand that we're dealt, like I said. And exactly. We learn if we're willing to learn and see the lessons that the universe brings to us.
I just think it's such an important part of being able to, and just because you're like you're through your grief now, like not through it, but you've gone through it, like you've talked about. And just because you're here today and you've written a book and you're able to talk to us about all this, it doesn't mean that you've sailed through it, that every day was easy for sure.
Right.
Definitely had your share of challenges. And that's why you're able to come and talk with us about it, which I really love that. Yeah, you've been able to do that and to share now with the world what you've learned. Have you ever been to counseling or therapy?
Oh yeah. My mom was a counselor, so I think everyone would benefit from having a counselor. I have a counselor right now. I see her virtually. I think it's super important. I think it's probably something I'll always have, just because, and I encourage my daughters to have counselors. It's really nice to have a place to work out things. And, life is challenging. Life is hard. So I'll take all the help I could get.
In your counseling sessions, because I haven't ever gone to therapy, but I hear, of course, that it would be very helpful. So what do they do in therapy? I mean, do they kind of give you advice, or do they just let you kind of talk through things and kind of think for yourself?
I mean, I think there's lots of different types of counselors, just with different personalities, and you have to find someone that you feel like a connection to, that you feel like you could open up with. But a lot of times you're sharing things and you're getting things out, you're working things out. They ask you questions to help you maybe see things a different way. I think it's less about sort of like giving you advice and telling you what to do, and more about helping you give yourself the advice.
Yeah, just kind of leading you in a direction to kind of help yourself.
But I would encourage you to check it out, because I think it's important.
And so since you've already been to counseling, though, there's nothing really that you would ask them if you had the chance, I guess, or before you started going, was there just a burning question that you had?
For me, it's like, I just felt like I needed some help. I didn't know how to navigate some of the challenges I felt like I was facing. And so I wanted to be in a safe space where I could work things out. That's what a counselor does for you.
I wanted to ask something. I don't know if you'll tell me, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but it said through an unexpected occurrence, it caused you to find the bag of letters and to open it. Yeah. You kind of talked about that. If you want to go through it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go through it. So this is all in the book, but my oldest daughter Zoe was about to go back to school. She was in my room. I was trying to distract her because I don't like saying goodbye. I don't like it when she leaves. This was before COVID. And she just was sitting in a chair. She pulled open a drawer and she found what I called our mother-daughter journals. So when my daughters were little, I had mother-daughter journals for each of them. Like I would write to them, put it on their pillow. They would write back to me, put it on my pillow. And it was just a beautiful way for us to kind of communicate, work out stuff. And so she found the journals and we opened it up. We were reading, we were holding hands. It was just such a fun gift. And after she went back to school, I was thinking like, I wish I had something like that from my mom. I wish that I had the ability to kind of hear her voice. And that's when I remembered like, wait a second, I do have these letters. And wait a second, they're in my house. And so that's how I remembered it.
Awesome. Is there anything about your mom? I mean, do you with your family or anything, or people who did know your mom, do they think that you remind them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's like the number one thing that they say?
I mean, my dad says it all the time. He's like, you remind me so much of your mom, and I love that. That's such a compliment for him to say it.
Yeah. And you mentioned previously that you're close to your dad. Now, were you that close when your mom passed away, or did your mom's passing help you get closer?
I think we were always close, but like you said, like my mom was the one that kind of said like, oh, dad's got this going on kind of. And so when my mom passed away, my dad and I became really even closer, really close. And I'm very close to my brother as well.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're taking what you preach and you're putting it into real
absolutely
life.
100%. Yeah.
Good. Well, that makes you authentic. Congratulations.
Yes. I'm nothing but authentic. That I can share to my children's dismay sometimes, but.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, I think that there's a lot more that we could definitely get into. Losing a parent just makes such an impact in our lives. And I'm happy that you've been able to kind of let it enhance your life, even though it did make a big giant hole. Especially at the time of being, in the time of being a new mom, it's crazy perfect, I guess.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One last time, will you kind of tell me what your blog, what's your website?
Yeah, everyone can visit my website, crazyperfectlife.com. They can get 5 free gifts if they purchase my book. There's links that'll take you everywhere. You can also get I Am My Mother's Daughter, Wisdom on Life, Loss and Love on Amazon. I'm also on Facebook. That's where my biggest following is, at Crazy Perfect Life. And I'm on Instagram also at Crazy Perf Life. So I hang out on both of those platforms. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed connecting with you and on Instagram and Facebook as well. So let me know what I can do to support you.
All right, Dara. Thank you so much. Thanks for being on Parentless Podcast.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You too.
Next week's episode will feature Jeff from Rides with Dad. Jeff is self-described as a thought leader, professional daydreamer, and keeping a positive vibe. You can find Jeff on several social media platforms such as Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. But for the month of March, you're invited over to Instagram at Rides with Dad to share Jeff's inspirational posts. Hint, hint, that's all of them, for a chance to win a prize. Jeff spent a lot of time over in Italy. I don't want to give too much away, but his pictures are amazing. You'll love Jeff. Check him out at Rides with Dad. Thank you, and see you next time. Parentless Podcast is recorded in Phoenix, Arizona. Find us on social media and most major podcast platforms. Music recorded by Colin the Coco and the Revolving Birds. Studio and editing provided by Back Home Media. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford.